All right, I think we can go ahead and get started. Good morning again, everyone. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. So we're going to do a SciNote introductory webinar. So the objective of this webinar is to take you through some of the basics of SciNote, and we'll be taking a look at some of the more important or core functionalities, like creating projects, protocols, templating your protocols and projects, using the inventories, and also a quick look at some of the protocol templates that you can use. If you have any questions along the way, please feel free to use the chat or Q&A option to drop your questions in, and I will be putting aside some time at the end for us to go over the questions. With that being said, we can jump right in. So we'll start off here with the overview dashboard in SciNote. The objective of this page here is to give every user a high-level summary on what the current state of things are in their SciNote team. The content that you see here are under the current tasks could vary from user to user. This would depend on which tasks or protocol a user is assigned to, as well as which projects a user has access to. Some of the information that you can glean from the current tasks include if there's any due dates that are coming up, when a particular task or protocol was completed, and also what the current status of a specific task or protocol is. To the right, there is a calendar. So this calendar widget here ties into the due dates that you assign to tasks. If you have a task or protocol and you assign a specific due date, on that particular date in the calendar, you will see a visual cue or reminder that there is something due, and that visual cue will be in the form of a red dot. When you click on the date, you will see the name of the task or protocol that's due, and it is also clickable. So you can click on this, directly navigate to that specific task, and begin working on it. On the bottom left here, we have a recent work section. This is very similar to your browser history, except specific to just SciNote. It shows you what you recently opened up and worked on in SciNote earlier on in the day. So in case you want to quickly jump to something you were working on previously, you can come to the recent work section and quickly navigate to that specific inventory, project, protocol, etc. And to the right of that, we have the signature requests. So in SciNote, if you're not aware, we have an electronic signature functionality as part of our 21 CFR compliance toolkit. This functionality allows you to request signatures from other users on a particular task or protocol, where the other user can review the information and sign off on it as with a digital signature. All right, so we will jump into the project section next. And before we dive into taking a look at an existing project and also creating a new project, I do want to take a moment to address a couple of things. So in SciNote, we do have a standardized data structure that all users must adhere to when capturing their data. This data structure consists of 3 layers or 3 tiers. And in SciNote, we call these 3 tiers project, experiment, and task. So what we're looking at here are projects, which is the first layer or the first tier. And when you open a project, it brings you to the second layer, which we call an experiment. And when you open an experiment, it brings you to the final layer, which we call a task in SciNote. And in SciNote, there's no limit on how many projects, experiments, and tasks you can create. And one more thing I want to emphasize as you're starting to think about, what some of your projects could look like in SciNote is that these terms that I'm using, project, experiment, and task, are really just labels to identify these 3 layers of data. So you may find that a project in your use case or in your lab may actually be an experiment in SciNote terms. And if this is something you need help with, please feel free to reach out to your customer success manager, or you can email our support team and someone will be happy to help you with this. All right. So with that being said, we can dive into creating a new project for today. So to create a new project, we just click New Project here. And then we have to give the project a name. So in this case, we'll do say a vaccine comparison study. Okay, so I have the project created here, but before we move forward, we have to determine if we want to grant any of our teammates access to this particular project. So to see which individuals have access to a particular project, you can click on this plus icon under the access column. This brings up the access settings for this specific project here. So you can see up here, it's specific for the project we just created. And that's because in SciNote, from project to project, you're able to customize the permission settings. And since we just created this project, I'm the only one that has access to it. So I can easily grant access to one of my teammates. So in this case, let's say I grant access to Ava. When I'm granting access to Ava, I also have to assign her a role on this particular project. And the role that I assign her on this project will determine what level of access she has on this particular project. So for example, I will just grant her owner access here. So you can have more than one individual with the same level of access or the same role on a project. And these roles can be updated at any point in time. So through the course of a project, if you realize someone's involvement is growing and you need to increase their level of access, you can do so very easily from this access settings in the project area. And a quick summary of the different roles. So as I mentioned, the role that you assign dictates the level of access that that individual has. And starting from the bottom, we have a viewer role, which grants read-only access. So they cannot make any changes to any of the data in the project. And then we have a technician role, which is a little bit more access. So the technician can view all the contents of the project. They're able to leave comments. They're able to mark steps as completed. And in addition to that, they're also able to provide an electronic signature on a particular task or protocol if required. And then we've got the user role. So the user role grants full edit access to all of the contents in the project. And lastly, we have an owner role, which is basically the user role, so full edit access. But in addition to that, the owner role allows you to modify the permission settings of a project. So you're able to add additional users to a project, change their level of access, and even remove users from a project. All right, so now we'll open this project, which brings us to that second layer of data or second tier that I mentioned, which is called an experiment in SciNote. And since we are doing a hypothetical vaccine comparison study, each experiment is going to be analysis of a particular vaccine in this case. So I'll create a new experiment and say for the first one, we will test the Moderna vaccine. And so now I'll open this experiment, which brings us to that final layer of data, which we call task in SciNote. And there's 2 ways to add tasks. We can either click new task, give the task a name. So in this case, let's say we're testing effectiveness of the vaccine in adult males, and I can create the task. And so we have the task created here. So this is one approach. The second approach is if you want to build a workflow of tasks or protocols that are going to be a part of this study, we can use this edit workflow approach. So this puts this gray canvas in what we call the editing mode. And so now you can click this task, drag it over here, and you can click new task and drag it onto the canvas. And let's say we're also going to test effectiveness in adult females and also effectiveness in children. And then once we gather all the data, we're going to do some data analysis. And then lastly, generate a report. And now if we wanted to connect all these tasks in a workflow, we can do that. So just click in the middle of the task here and drag the arrow over. And so now we have a simple workflow of 5 tasks here. And once you're done building out your workflow, please remember to click Save on the top right before you navigate to any other pages or even refresh this page. And here we have our workflow created. And this workflow can be modified at any time. So as you're going through, say, one of these protocols, you realize you need to modify the workflow, or maybe you have to repeat one of these protocols because you use an expired reagent or there was some sort of deviation and a repeat was required. You can come in, modify the workflow, add that repeat task in here and connect it into the workflow very easily. But let's say this workflow approach isn't as applicable or as intuitive for your use case. You can switch out of this from the canvas view into a table view, in which case you will see all your tasks that you created in a list in a tabular format here rather than as a workflow. And from here, we can very easily open one of these tasks. And this brings us to the task page in SciNote. So the task page in SciNote is split into 4 sections. So we've got the protocol section, results section, the activity log, and signature log. We'll go through each one of these, but we'll start out with the protocol section here. First things first, we can input some basic details about this particular task or protocol. If you want to specify a start date, you can do so. And you can also input a due date from here. And if you do assign a due date, when we go back to the calendar widget on our dashboard, we will see a visual reminder for the 30th of September, along with the name of this task under that date when you click on it. And then we're able to assign the task or this particular task to a specific user or a group of users if needed. Now, by default, SciNote does assign the task to the individual that created it. So in this case, since I created this task, it's been assigned to me, but I can click here and easily reassign it to someone else that is working with me on this project. Now, something important to remember here, if you click here and you're looking to assign this task to someone and you don't see their name in this dropdown, it's most likely because you haven't granted them access to this project yet. So they may be on the same team as you in SciNote, but you need to make sure they have access to this project before you're able to assign a particular task to them. And so here, when I assign this to Ava, she will get a notification inside of SciNote. And if she has her email notifications enabled, she will also get an email letting her know that I've assigned her to this particular task in SciNote. And then we have an area for notes. So this is really a free form area for you to capture any background information, any references, any additional notes as the operator or for the operator. All of that can be captured here. And in SciNote, anywhere you have a text field, whether it's the notes section here or the comment section in a step or a result, you can take advantage of one of our collaborative features, which is the ability to tag other users on your team. So to do this, you just need to hit the @ key. This will bring up a list of users on your SciNote team. You can select a user and you can leave them a note, a comment, a question. So in this case, maybe I'll let Mark know. So now Mark is tagged in this comment. He's going to receive an email notification letting him know that I've tagged him in a comment or in a note in SciNote. And next, this brings us to the assigned items section. So this is where the inventory section in SciNote ties into the projects and protocols section. From here, you're able to access all the inventories you've created in SciNote in this particular team, and you can selectively pick items from those inventories that are going to be involved in this particular protocol and assign them. And when you pick an item and assign it to a task or protocol in SciNote, SciNote's going to create a traceable link in the background. So when we go to the inventory and pick an item, we'll be able to see exactly which projects, experiments, and tasks that item was used in. So as a quick example, let me click Assign From. This should bring up a list of inventories that I have access to on this team. And let me scroll down and grab a sample or an item. So here I pulled up my sample inventory. And before you decide to select an item and assign it to a task or protocol, you're able to see all the relevant information about that item that's been captured in the inventory. So I can check if there's enough volume left, if it's a reagent, when the expiration date is, if it's an instrument, when the calibration date, when the last calibration was done. So all this information is available to you, and you can then select the item, assign it to the task. And now under assigned items, we have the name of the inventory. And if we expand this, we'll see from that inventory, which items have we selected. And for the items, if you are tracking the stock, you will see this functionality to consume a certain amount. That's because with the stock management feature in SciNote, you're able to input how much of this item you're consuming in this specific protocol, and SciNote will automatically update the inventory to reflect how much is left. So in this case, I can click Consume, say we're consuming 4 microliters. So now the remaining volume is automatically updated to reflect how much is left, which in this case is 10 microliters. And just as another quick example, I'll open up a slightly different inventory. In this case, say our instrument inventory. So here you'll notice the columns and data captured is slightly different. So we can review all this information, check if the instrument is within spec or out of spec, check the user manual, check if it's reserved or under maintenance. If it is reserved, you can see who has it reserved and maybe directly reach out to that person to see if you can borrow the instrument for a bit. So you can use the inventories to capture all this information. And from the protocol, you can access all this information before you decide whether to use a particular item from the inventory in your protocol. And then that brings us to the actual protocol section of the task here. So there's a couple of ways to add content to your protocol section in a task. If we're building out a new protocol from scratch, we can absolutely do that. So in this case, we'll give the protocol a name. I'll just make something up here as an example. And then we can start adding steps from here. So I can click New Step, give the step a name. And then for the first step, you'll need to decide what content type or data type are you going to add. So if you go to Insert Content, you will see a few options pop up. We'll take a look at each of these options here, but we'll start out with text. So if I select text, it will drop in a text editor, which allows me to add my protocol steps as needed. And with this text editor, you do get a lot of the commonly used functionalities that you would find in, say, Microsoft Word. So this includes bullet points, numbering, indents, alignment, font size, font types, highlights, etc. But in addition to all of this, you also have the ability to insert images and tables. So let's say we have a few steps, a few protocol steps added, and we want to reference a particular table or image. We can do that. So I can go to insert a table. So I just need to define the table dimensions. And then we have a table inserted. And then I can continue adding more text. And then maybe now we want to reference an image here. So I can go to insert, this time select image. And I'll just drop in an example image that I have. So here we have an image inserted, but of course I can easily resize this and also change the alignment so it's more centered. And then we can continue adding more text as needed. And once you're done adding content under this first step, we can click save, and all this information is going to be saved here. Another important thing I wanted to mention is within a single step in SciNote, if you needed to add substeps, you can do that. So here we have step 1, but let's say I want to have 1.2 or 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, I can do that as well. So after I inserted this, so I went to insert content, inserted this text editor here, I can name this text editor as 1.1. I can add another one here, call this 1.2. And then add some content under 1.2. So you do have the ability to break up your steps into multiple sub-steps if needed. Now, in addition to being able to add text or use the text editor, there are some more content types that we support. One of them are these tables. So these tables are what we call the default SciNote tables. Of course, they support basic data input, so you can enter data very easily in here, and you can add additional rows or columns as needed. And you can also rename the table if you want to. So you can give this table a name, or if you want to turn this into step 1.3, you can do that as well. And these tables also support a range of basic arithmetic and statistical formulas. And on our knowledge base, we have a list of formulas that are supported by the default SciNote tables. But a quick spoiler alert, some exciting news related to the tables. At the end of this year, we're completely revamping these tables and introducing a much more upgraded version of them that will support an even broader range of formulas, as well as make the cells more dynamic, bringing the functionality and experience a bit more closer to what you would find in, say, Microsoft Excel. So it's not available today, but it's coming very soon. All right. So we looked at adding the text editor, adding tables. A couple more things that we can add in SciNote. One is a checklist. So you can also name the checklist. So maybe this could be, in this case, a pre-experiment checklist. And you could have things to do before you start the protocol or experiment in this case. So I'll just make up a couple of basic things. So maybe we checked reagent expiration date. Okay, I'll just add these two as examples. And the reason the checklists can be useful is as the user or operator or technician is going through this checklist, they are able to mark each of these as completed. And the action of marking a checklist item as completed is captured in the activity log and the audit trail. So if you go to the activity log and you want to check when the checklist items were marked as completed, you'll be able to tell the time, the date, as well as which user marked them as completed. And you can have more than one checklist within a protocol or even within the same step, no problem. And the last two content types we'll look at, one is the well plate templates. So if you are running PCR type reactions or any other reactions that require you to use well plates, you can use our well plate templates to build out your plate map and input the sample IDs and the controls and where they're located. And in the results section, you can insert a similar well plate template and capture the results for each corresponding sample ID. So first, we just select the dimension of the well plate. So I'll go with 96. And you can even rename the plate here if there's a particular code or if this is related to a particular run. You can rename it here. So in this case, maybe I'll say plate run 01. As an example. And then here you can input your sample IDs, where your controls are. And then in your results section, we can insert a similar well plate template and capture the corresponding results for each ID. And the last content type we'll take a look at is adding files. So in SciNote, we don't have a restriction on what file types you can upload to your protocol step or your results. You can upload any file type. The only limitation we have is not all these file types can be opened, viewed, and edited directly from SciNote. There are some file types that do support this. So if you're uploading Word documents, Excel files, PowerPoint files, you can open them from SciNote. You can even edit them directly from SciNote. If you have image files that are JPEGs, JPGs, or PNG file types, you can open them, view them in SciNote, and even edit them in SciNote with our neat little image editing tool. If you have a PDF file, you can open it and view it in SciNote, but not make any edits to it. For all other file types, you can upload them, store them in SciNote, no problem, but you won't be able to open them, view them from SciNote, or edit them directly from SciNote. But we do have a workaround for this, which I'll explain in a moment. So I'm just going to upload two different file types so I can visually show you what this looks like. So I will upload two files from my computer. So now if I scroll down, okay, I've added two files. One is an Excel file, which we can open and edit directly from SciNote. And another one is a .dna file, which I cannot open from my SciNote here. First, we'll take a look at the Excel file. So when I click on it, it brings up a preview of the file. And from here, I can open it in Excel Online, which will open in a new tab in the online version of Excel and allow me to make any changes to this particular file. All the changes I make are automatically saved. So if I close the tab, I don't have to worry. Those changes are automatically saved to the file I've uploaded in SciNote. Next, we'll take a look at this .dna file. So as you can see, there's no preview available because SciNote's not able to read this file type or file format. But for files that are not compatible to be viewed or edited from SciNote, We developed a plugin called SciNote Edit, which still allows you to make edits to these proprietary file types outside of SciNote and still have those changes saved to the file you have attached in SciNote. So the way this works is, so I've got this .dna file uploaded. I've clicked on it. I don't have a preview, but on the top, you'll notice I have this option that says open locally. If I select this option, SciNote will download a copy of this specific file to my desktop and allow me to open it with whatever software this file is compatible with. I can then make my changes to this file using that software. And the moment I save my changes, those changes are automatically synced to the file we have uploaded in SciNote. So this ensures that the file uploaded in SciNote is continuously updated, even though the changes are being made outside of SciNote. And this SciNote edit functionality applies to not just files that can't be viewed in SciNote, but even with your files that you can view and edit directly from SciNote. If you notice under the Open In option, there's an Open in Excel Online, which, like I mentioned, will open it in a new tab in Excel Online, allowing you to make the changes you need to. But there's a second option, which is Open in Microsoft Excel. So if I select this, the same thing happens as with the .dna file. SciNote will download a copy of this file to my desktop, open this file in Microsoft Excel on my desktop, allow me to work on it, make any changes that I want to. And the moment I save my changes, those changes are synced to the file we have uploaded in SciNote. And with files, actually the last thing I'll go over is the image editing tool, since this could be quite useful for some of our users. So let me just upload this image file. So there is a difference between inserting an image within this text editor here. So here we inserted the image, whereas down here we're uploading it as an attachment. The advantage of uploading it as an attachment is when you click on it, you get the preview, but you also get to open it in our image editing tool. So when I click this open in, I can open this in the SciNote image editor. And this allows me to make edits to the image, including things like making annotations. Maybe I want to label something in the image. I can drop in a label. And of course, I can resize the image, crop it, adjust some of the coloration settings like the brightness, saturation, etc. And once I've made all these changes, I can save it with those edits. And now the file I have uploaded here is saved with the changes that I made using our image editing tool. And you can also download a copy of this file with those edits in case you need to share it outside of SciNote. And the last thing before we jump over to the results section are these comments. So every step in SciNote has a comment area or comment section. When you click on it, it brings up the comment area here. You can, of course, type out any comments that you want. You can also tag other users since this is a text field. The collaborative tagging feature does work. So I can say tag Alex and say, please review this step. So now Alex gets a notification that he's been tagged in a comment in this step. He can open the same comment, respond to me, and this entire comment thread is preserved in case you ever need to revisit it to take a look at any changes that were made based on a conversation that happened in the comment area. All right, so now we'll hop on over to the results section. In SciNote, adding results is very similar to how we added protocol steps. Instead of adding a new step, we're adding a new result. And we give you the ability to create multiple result sections if you'd like to. So for example, maybe you want to have a section to upload all your raw data, a section for all the analyzed data, and finally a section for your summary findings or conclusion. So in this case, I could call this result raw data, and here I can upload some hypothetical raw data files. I'll just grab this Excel file here. And then I could have a second section for analyzed data. And same thing, I'll just drop in a file here. And then I could have a final section for conclusion. And here I would insert text and type out my conclusion here. So this is just one approach you can take. Some other approach that I've seen, you could have results based on which step that result was generated from. So I could say a new result and say result from step 1 and add all those results here. And within a single result, you can have multiple text fields. You can have a table if you'd like to. You can have attachments. So you can have multiple objects or result elements under the same result section. Or maybe you just want to keep it simple and just call it results, and you can drop all your results under one section here. So again, the flexibility is there for you to set it up in a way that suits your internal workflow the best. And with results, of course, we have comments that you can leave in case you need someone to review the result or something doesn't look right. You have the ability to tag users in the comment section here. And once again, the comment section is preserved, so you can always refer back to it in case there's some important information there. Okay, so next we'll take a look at the activity log. So earlier I briefly alluded to the activity log, stating that it captures all changes or actions taking place in this specific task, along with the user ID, timestamp, and date stamp of when that action or activity occurred. So here you can see a long list of activities or changes that I have performed in this particular task. And this includes everything from creating a new protocol step, editing a protocol step, assigning this task to someone, adding an inventory item, adding a result, editing a result, building a result. Everything that happens in the task is captured here in the activity log. Now, the activity log will get quite lengthy and exhaustive as you're adding more data to it, which can make it a bit cumbersome to look for something very specific in the activity log. So to help with this, we have some filters that you can use. So if you know approximately the date range of when a particular activity might have occurred, you can set a date range as a filter. Alternatively, if you're, say, are looking for if a result was edited, or you suspect a result was edited and you want to know who made that edit and when it was done, you can use the filter for result edited. And right away, you'll notice that the activity log gets a lot smaller and a lot more specific, making it easier for me to find the exact activity that I'm looking for. And lastly, we have the signature log. Of course, we have no signatures yet, but I will quickly show you how the electronic signature feature works. So the signatures are triggered by the task status flow. So every task in SciNote goes through these 5 stages. When a task is created, of course, it's in the status not started. And then once you begin working on it, you can update it to in progress. Once it's completed, you can update it to completed. Now you can choose to leave it at completed, which is totally fine. However, if you leave the task at the status completed, other users in SciNote that have editing permissions to this project or task can still come into this task and make changes to it, even though it's been marked as completed. If you want to prevent this, then you would need to push the task to in review, at which point you can lock the task using your own signature, or you can request multiple signatures, and once everyone signs off on it, this task is locked using everyone's signatures. And in order to make any edits to the task, you would first need to unlock it, which would require everyone that signed off on it to revoke their signatures, after which you can then make some changes to it as needed. And as a quick example, I'll show you what the electronic signature module looks like. So we're now at completed. I'm going to push it to in review, where I'll get a notification letting me know that this task is now going to be locked. And from here in a moment, I should be able to sign off on the task. So here I can either sign off on it myself, or I can request a signature from other users that have access to this particular project. For today, I'll just sign off on it myself. And you can leave any comments before you sign off. And you can use your SciNote credentials, your username and password to sign off on the task. Or if you're using single sign-on across your company, you can use single sign-on to sign off on the task as well. So both options are available. And for us internally, since we do have single sign-on set up, that's why it's taking me through this process instead of having me input my username and password. So now the signatures are completed. And once all the required signatures are completed, I can move it to done. So now the task is locked, can no longer be edited unless I revoke my signature. And under the signature log, you'll see the history of which user signed off, when they signed off, and if they left any comments. And if I revoke my signature, that will appear as a separate line item under the signature log as well. And the last feature I want to go over in the projects area is the sharing functionality. So this sharing functionality is intended for temporary sharing of task information with someone that doesn't have a SciNote account. So this allows you to enable the temporary link sharing. You can then copy this link and send it to someone that doesn't have a SciNote account. When they click on the link, they will see information that appears in the protocol and results section, but they will only have read-only access. They will not be able to make any changes. If you have any images or attachments, they will be able to view the images and download the attachments, but they won't be able to make any edits that are reflected in your SciNote task. And once you decide they no longer need access to it, you can deactivate this link. And after this, even if they were to click on the link you sent them, it wouldn't work for them anymore. All right. One more quick thing with the tasks before we jump to inventories. So I'm going to open another task here. So in the previous task, we looked at building a protocol from scratch. But let's say you know what protocols you're going to be performing ahead of time, and these are protocols that are routinely done. Well, you can take these protocols and build them out in the protocol template section here. And once you have them saved as a template, you can use them repeatedly in tasks as needed. And you don't have to recreate the steps again. You can just load the steps from an existing template. And the way this works is you open an empty task, go to the protocol actions, say load from templates. Here you'll see a list of protocols that you have saved in your protocol template repository, and you select the protocol that you want to use, and you load it into the task. And here you will see it automatically populates all the steps here. So this is a great way to save time, especially if you're working with protocols that are going to be performed routinely over time. And once you load a protocol from the template into a task, if you need to make minor changes to it, maybe you want to remove a step or add an additional step, you can still do that. So you can load the template into a task and make the edits in the task. That way you're not impacting the master template or the source template in your protocol template repository. And beyond just being able to template individual protocols, you also have the ability to template an entire workflow. So coming back to our hypothetical vaccine comparison study here, so let's say we are evaluating multiple vaccines. We've just done the evaluation for the Moderna vaccine, and now we want to take, say, the AstraZeneca vaccine and put it through the same analytical methods or test methods as we did for the Moderna vaccine. So I know my tasks and protocols are going to be the same. The protocol steps are going to be the same. It's just the vaccine being tested is going to be different. And of course, the results and data is going to be different. So I can take an existing workflow. I can click duplicate. I can duplicate it into the same project we're working in right now, or I can create a new project and duplicate it into the new project if I wanted to. But for today, we'll keep it to the same project here. And you can see it basically clones the previous workflow, but of course we can rename this to and if we opened any of these tasks, we can see the protocol steps are already populated. So it copies the workflows, including the tasks and the protocol steps within the task. Okay, so next we'll jump over to inventories. I know we only have 10 minutes left, so we'll make this quick. So the inventories in SciNote can be used for a wide array of applications, and that's because the inventories are completely customizable. You're able to customize the number of columns, the column names, as well as the type of data being captured in each column. So as an example, I'll quickly open two different inventories just to illustrate this. So first we have an instrument management inventory. And so here I have all my hypothetical lab equipment as inventory items, which should load any moment here. Apologies, my internet's slowing down a bit. There we go. So here you can see each item is a different lab instrument, and all the columns you see to the right, all of these can be customized. So you can have additional columns, fewer columns, no problem. You can rename the columns, and you can also customize what type of data is being captured in each column. So what do I mean when I say type of data in each column? So let me put this item into editing. And so here you can see under the column name, this is just a text field that allows you to input the name of the item. Whereas for the availability column, the column type is slightly different. This one has a preset list of options that I can select depending on what the availability of the instrument is. For the calibration date, this one's a slightly different column type. This allows me to input a specific date. This is important because when you're using the column type date, you're able to set reminders for expiration dates, calibration dates, maintenance dates, etc. And the way it works is you enable the reminder, and you define the threshold at which you want the reminder to trigger. So you input, say, in this case, the calibration date, and you say, remind me 1 month before the date I input here. So once we're in that 1 month range, SciNote will send out a notification to you, letting you know that this item is about to expire. Similarly, for location, it's a slightly different column type with, again, preset list of drop-down options. And then for the user manual, I can actually upload a file because in the SciNote inventories, you can upload files that you want to associate with certain items. So if you have an instrument inventory, you can upload user manuals. If you have a reagent inventory, you could upload the SDS or MSDS files. So really, it's flexible, up to you. The same file restrictions apply as before. You can upload any file type, but not all the file types can be opened, viewed, and edited from SciNote. And the second inventory I'll quickly go over is our sample inventory here. So you'll see right away the columns here are slightly different. Let me just hide these 2 columns. And that's because this is a different application of the inventory. I'm tracking samples that I received that I need to process and test. So I'm tracking different information, such as the status of a sample, how much volume I've got left. If I have some data in my LIMS system and I want to reference that data here, I can do that, capturing the date received, when it was processed, the due date, and also the result. And 1 or 2 unique things I want to highlight here. One is the stock management column. So since this is a sample, I am interested in tracking the stock of how much I have left, so I know how much additional testing I can do. With the stock management column, you're able to create low stock reminders. So you can enable the low stock reminder. You can define the threshold for which you want to call low stock. And once the remaining amount enters that threshold, SciNote will trigger a low stock reminder to you, letting you know the item name and that it's now running low on stock. And if you are using the stock management feature, we also can generate consumption reports. So I can select 2 items. I can export a consumption report, and the consumption report will contain information such as the name of the item, as well as the details on the project name, experiment name, task name, and how much of the item was used in each specific task. So if you want to do a breakdown of how much stock or volume or quantity of an item you used across multiple projects, you can export the consumption report from here. It is generated as a CSV, so you can open it in Excel, and it's a lot easier for you to do your quick calculations using formulas in Excel with the data from the consumption report. And the second thing I wanted to highlight is this relationships column here. This is intended for any aliquots or subsamples or parent-child samples that you may be using. So if you have a parent sample and you're taking out dilutions of it to run testing on, you can capture the aliquots or subsamples as individual inventory items, either in the same inventory or a different inventory, and you can connect them to the parent sample using the relationships column here. So there's 2 numbers that appear here. The number on the left indicates if this item here has a parent sample, and the number on the right indicates if it has any subsamples or aliquots, and if it does, how many. And if I click on the number, it pulls up the item card and tells me which items are the aliquots or subsamples to this item here. And if I want information on any of these, I can just click this, and it brings up the item card for that particular item here. And the last thing with the inventories is you can very easily import, export inventory data. So if you have inventory information in an Excel file or a CSV file, migrating it to SciNote can be pretty easy. It just requires you to set up the columns in SciNote ahead of time, and then make sure the columns match the names of the columns in your Excel file. And you upload the Excel file. SciNote will auto map the columns and ask you to review it and fix anything that needs to be fixed. And once you confirm, all the data from your Excel file will be migrated into your SciNote inventory. And on that note, I will pause here because we are almost out of time. So that if there's any questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat or Q&A section, or feel free to email me directly or email our support team, and we'll be happy to help.